Welcome home, where
Well,
you get information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Darnell Phillips here with me today. How you doing, Darnell?
hello, everyone. Hello. I'm
Hey,
doing well, man.
you doing well? Doing
Yes,
well?
sir.
I want to say hello to all of our viewers out there, the people who are part of the community that is America's Next Motivator. When you tune in here, it really means a lot to us, and appreciate you being in the audience. We have a very special guest today. Darnell is an overcomer. He is a victorious gentleman, and we're going to talk about his journey today. Darnell, where are you from?
I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia.
What was it like for you growing up in Virginia Beach, Virginia?
Virginia Beach is an area that is very multicultural. Like you're in New York. Well, in Virginia Beach is the same way. You deal with so many different type of religious beliefs, different ethnicities. And so me growing up, I had a plethora. I had Indian friends, Chinese friends, friends from Africa, England. And so, in Virginia Beach growing up, you get a lot of exposure to many different cultures. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So Virginia Beach is almost like pretty much like a major city.
Well, yeah, it's like kind of like a little bit country, a little bit city.
Kind of in between then. In between.
Yeah.
What were some of the traditions that you remember growing up there? What types of foods are you guys known for out there?
We are known for seafood.
Okay.
We're known for like Virginia. I heard a lot of guys and used to tell me that they'd never had fried crabs. Well, in Virginia, you can get fried crabs. You got a lot of seafood restaurants, very popular for that. And so, we're known for a lot of that seafood.
Are you a seafood man?
Yes, I am. I'm a seafood foodie, man.
Well, what are your favorites?
My favorite is catfish. And so a lot of times I go down to the soul food restaurant and get catfish and shrimp.
Catfish and shrimp. I tried crabs not too long ago, because sometimes when I watch people get that white apron and they put it around their neck and they sit there and they eat so many crabs, I'm thinking I gotta try that. And so I got a bag of crabs for myself and my family. And I really didn't understand what all the fuss was about, man. I couldn't find the part that was edible, and I just found myself doing a science project.
Yeah, the key is here, right? The fried crabs. It's pretty much all in the batter, because you're never going to get a lot of meat like you would if you're, a poultry or beef or whatever. But just like I said, that batter and that little bit of crab meat, man, it's something. It's something to behold, man. So I might not use the apron. I just dig right in, man.
Right. Now, did you guys do much grilling out there? Did you ever have family parties where somebody's got the grill out? Talk about it.
We did. When I was growing up, right? I lived down the street from a park, and so a lot of times when we would finish playing basketball, several friends of mine, we would go and we would grill. I used to love ribs on the grill. And so one of my friends named Aaron, we would get together on the weekdays and, like I say, maybe about 2 or 3 times a week in the summer. And we would just grill ribs, man, sit in the backyard, talk about things. Because like I say, it's a very laid back area. And so, like I say, it wasn't a high crime area. It's just an area that a guy can grow up, get a lot of exposure to businessmen. So we would talk about little businesses that perhaps we would maybe open one day, new ventures we saw that we could get into. And so it was a good area for any young person to grow up in.
I remember those types of conversations with my friends. Hey, Ryan Young, we see you out there. Love those ribs, right? Yeah. I know when you grow up in a lot of these areas, there was some good eating that goes on. And I like to draw those moments out so that we can smell and taste your childhood.
Yes, sir.
When you talk about conversations with your peers about starting businesses, figuring out how to become prosperous, and you've got positive examples, young people come up with some pretty good ideas. A couple of my friends and I, we talked about a way to sanitize a door handle before you grab it. This was maybe 6 years ago.
Right.
Ways to heat up your driveway so that you don't have to shovel the snow off of it in the wintertime.
Creative.
What were some of the ideas that you all came up with?
Me, I learned early because some of my dad's brothers, right? He was in law enforcement, and so he was a very man. The guy had to get the gab, you know. Rest in peace. Is my uncle Don? Well, he would go and get contracts from places like QPC, and what he would do is, you know, we move mainframe computers, and so I would think about things like, let's say, for instance, I was exposed to cleaning cars early.
Okay.
And so I learned how to really detail earlier. I got into telemarketing. So, and then I was an avid music lover. So what I would do is I would think about looking at it, because there's a lot of talent in Virginia Beach. So I would think about looking for guys that I could perhaps manage their talent. You know, club scene was real strong when I was growing up. That's one area I was trying to get into as well, you know.
Really? So who were your musical influences back then?
Me back then when I was growing up, it was if you go from the early 80s, it was people like David Bowie, people like the Duran. But then you also got the other side because of the exposure. You know, being a young African American, it may have been, like, say, Run DMC, LL Cool J, Tribe Called Quest, Chubb Rock. You know, you know, I loved Philadelphia rappers, so it was Steady B, Cool C. You know, people like that, man.
Right. Now, did you ever aspire to be a music artist?
Well, yes, I did actually. Right, production was one of the things I was trying to get into. Production, promotions.
Wow. What was your relationship like with your father?
The relationship with my father was my father grew up in the 40s and 50s. And so back then men were extremely strong natured, you know, didn't show a lot of emotion, but he showed you his love through his provision that he made for the family, the love that he showed for my mother. So he was a good husband and provider, and then he would also, like, when they grew up, they had to grow up fast. And so he wasn't as sensitive to, like take for instance these days, like, well, kids can pretty much lay in the house and play on computers and stay on their phone. Well, when I grew up, my father was like, look, you're 14, 15, it's time to work and get a job because that's the age of grown. I'm like, that's not grown, that's a kid. And so my father encouraged me to have a strong work ethic from the time I was probably about 12 on up.
Did you ever have I'm sorry, go ahead.
Look, but he was a very strong and faithful guy. I learned loyalty through him, and you know, be a person that's about your word from him.
Okay. Did you ever have conversations with your father about society and what was at stake for young men, particularly young African American men?
I did, because my father shared with me how that when he was growing up, like I say, you know, in the 50s and things of that nature, it was a very racist time for them. And so he let me know that it's important for a young African American male to stay from the wrong side of the track, wrong side of you know, certain influences around your life. Don't bring stuff like that to your home or invite it into your life, because you're subject to be an object of I guess the legal system, right? So he shared that with me. He shared with me a lot of instances that he was targeted. Like he would tell me, like, let's say for instance, I remember growing up, he went out to get some food for a snowstorm. And so by the time my father got to the corner, he came back maybe about a half an hour later. But see, the walk was maybe about an hour, right? Like I say, he was a good provider. And so he came back, but he was all soaking wet. And we were like, what was that? He said a person called him the N-word and threw a beer bottle on him. You know, and so he shared with me that, look, you know, you have to be careful and be watchful. You're a young African American man. And so, yeah, he shared those things with me.
Who did you intend to become in the world at let's say 12 years old? Who did you want to become? To
me, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I would go and if I would say an individual, I would have to say someone like I don't know if you heard of the Browner brothers. Well, they're in ministry, but they're in the hair care.
Yep.
Well, I read a lot of books, you know, growing up reading a lot of Essence books and Ebony books. I would really look into those guys who were doing something for a family and legacy. And so I wanted to be somewhat like them, not so much as in the hair care, but as far as providing a legacy. Even as a young man, my dad always made sure that he put a lot of books in front of us. He did that. He always would get the encyclopedias. And so me, I would dig. I would be an avid reader. So I would say somebody like the Browner brothers and anybody who was in business. And then you had a lot of men who were down the street from me. We had a lot of business offices. So I would go and hang out with them and ask them how did they start their business. And they would pretty much give me a little informal mentorship.
Mm-hmm. Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have one brother and two sisters.
Okay. Okay. How old were you when you got your first job?
I got my first job. I had lied. I was like 14. I was tall, man. You know, I was like, when I was 14, I was like 5'11", you know, so, and then my brother and I at the time, even though he had facial hair, I could resemble him. So I was like 14, I lied, and I got a telemarketing job. I did.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yep.
What now? Yeah, 14, and you're really in the real world when you get out on a phone floor like that. Were you able to adapt and you know, really get into the job, or did they soon realize, oh, this young man's too immature?
No, they didn't, because like I said, growing up in the household with my father, right, you learn to mature fast. You know, and I went from telemarketing to learning how to lay rebar cage, because, you know, like I said, the money with telemarketing, it wasn't coming as fast. It was an hourly, it was by commission. And even though I did pretty well in that, I learned to go down the street. And I also told another story about going to I knew how to like construction, right? Because I had a little size with me too, because, you know, I used to run and work out. And so what was crazy about that, I got a job. I learned how to lay rebar cage. Wow. And then down the line, my cousin, we were about the same height. So I learned how to lay insulation of houses. I learned how to do that. So I spent a lot of time trying to fit into a grown-up world. When I was a child, I had a little bit of maturity, just enough to get by, you know, to get a job and work right. Yeah.
The influence of your father and other men like your father influenced you to say, I can skip some of the formalities and get straight into the real world. Sounds like you had the confidence to go out there and start learning, start getting hands-on experience, where some people who didn't have the same conversations with men might have said, oh, I'm not quite ready to get out there yet. For instance, you know, your average 15-year-old might be afraid to go out there and lay rebar on a concrete field right now, but you went out there and did that job.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We got a comment in the building. Yolanda Riley says hello.
Hello, 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 Yolanda.
We are learning the story of Darnell Phillips today. Darnell is really just an adventurous young man. He's bold, tall, brown skin, African American, and confident about his pursuits. And it sounds like your father told you to be that way.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. My father.
What was your performance like in school?
In school now, because of me being a guy that had garnered a lot of experience, kind of somewhat to speak, I really didn't. I like school. I love school. I love to read. But to me, I didn't really like the school, like the formality of school. I really didn't like it, even though I went and I participated and I got pretty good grades. I just didn't like just being in the class, because I was so ambitious, because I had been exposed to a lot of things. And so I saw that you needed to have finances, you know? And so that was one of the things that I did, right? I didn't pay as much attention as I should have in school. I really didn't.
Do you feel that we need to incorporate more of the job market, the financial markets, how to earn money, types of concepts into the school curriculum?
I really do believe that we need to go ahead and incorporate a lot of things about not just economics, because they say a lot of the economic professors are broke, right? But they need a lot of live uh, people, innovators, to come into the school system and let them teach the courses. Those who have somewhat of an influence and have been successful in whatever endeavor that they're in. So we do really need to modify school. Just like I said, teach them about the stocks, teach them about e-commerce, teach them about how to, because some people, right, we all know that everybody learns different. So teach them according to their creative bents, Right. Yep. A lot of times, when like in school, you either could go, when I was going to school, it'd be electrician. They were dealing with how to fix a radio. But we need people to learn how to be entrepreneurs and not just produce workers. Nothing wrong with it, but you have a lot of people that really, for real, they belong starting out and running towards their creative bent. So I think at a young age, teach them about being an entrepreneur.
I agree with you 100%. I can recall being in school, and other people can probably identify with this as well. If you can identify with this juncture right here, drop a 1 in the chat. You're in school, but you're thinking about money. You're in school, but you're thinking about how to make money, how to generate money, how to grow wealth. And it's not always a college kid in a college class thinking about this. There are kids in elementary school who are thinking about money. And because they see their parents' relationship with money, they see people in their neighborhood's relationship with money, and they're more fascinated with the money than they are with the actual lesson at hand. It's true. Sometimes you never get a guest appearance from an accountant when you're in elementary school or middle school. Sometimes you've got to get to high school or maybe even college before a special performer comes to your class to talk to you about money, the different industries, the different verticals that pertain to money. And I think that's a great idea that you talk about, teaching our young people how to acquire assets, how to go out there and get ahead of the money challenge, in the K through 12 space. I think that's very important. Definitely. So now, what was your idea as to how you would go on to make money?
My idea was, believe it or not, it was through, like I said, utilizing the abilities and skills of my, I guess you say my colleagues, my contemporaries, because I had a lot of friends who rapped, because a lot of times I would hang around guys who would go college, like Norfolk State in Tidewood area. And so a lot of them, they could rap. A lot of them were good at the time with, the scratching, with the DJing. And so what I wanted to do is, because I've always set myself up to try to be, like I said, an entrepreneur, I could see talent real good. And I was always a motivator, and I was always a person that tried to inspire them. It's important to get the education, definitely, right? Because you have to know what you're doing. That's the key. But me, I wanted to be, like I say, in that music industry really strong. I really did.
I can identify with that. I really wanted to be a part of the music industry as well. It was just a powerful, powerful movement. It was a powerful movement. Now, did your love for the entertainment industry, did it start with hip hop, or were you also a student of soul music, gospel music? Talk about it.
Soul music, gospel music, because I grew up every morning. My dad ended up playing. He was a Christian man, but I heard Marvin Gaye every morning. I asked him years later. I said, Dad, every morning you get up, you play that same song. He said, son, that's because I need that motivation to go to work. So he'll play Marvin Gaye real loud. It might be like 5:30 in the morning, and I wake up to hearing Marvin Gaye's song. Right? I'm like, what in the world? But he did that until I got older, right? And I was like, well, I understood later on. So music was my dad's motivation, right, to get up. Yeah.
Did you think that just by getting in the music industry that you would begin to make money?
I did, honestly. because, you know, during that time when I grew up, conscious rap was a big thing.
Okay.
And, you know, there was doing the move, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, you know, when people were more conscious about, like I said, violence in the neighborhoods and the black culture in the black neighborhoods. And so me personally, I had an interest also as well. And everyone that I was around, they kind of had a bent towards that area, right? About conscious music. And so I really felt that we could really enter into that market and generate a wealth for just us guys with the talent that I had around me. Extraordinary gentlemen.
How did you feel about conscious rap?
I felt that I identified with it.
Really?
I identified with it because, you know, you see, even though, like I said, I lived in suburbs, but oftentimes I hung around like the city where I live near to, like Norfolk, Virginia. Well, Norfolk, Virginia, that is an area that what we consider more urban area, right? And so I would hang over there. A lot of my friends were over there. And so what we would do is, I saw drug dealing. I saw guys hustling. These guys weren't necessarily bad, but it's just that they didn't see any other option. They didn't have their fathers in their homes at the time. A lot of times their mother was busy working. And so a lot of times their influences came from the street hustlers. And so what we would do, I saw the guys. I had an influence in my life. So it really didn't capture me like that. I didn't have a love for the street, but I love the culture. I love the clothes. I love the music. And so, you know, me personally, right, it really identified with something that was going on in me. Wanting to really make it. Didn't want to just be the average Joe, you know.
You know, you're striking a chord with me. We have a gentleman in the building. He says, shout out to the 757. AJ Williams is in the building. How you doing, AJ? You know, I've had conversations with gentlemen probably about your age who talk about the magnetism of early hip hop and the way that it was steering you in a positive direction for the most part. Talking to you directly to the young man and the young woman about acquiring knowledge of self, galvanizing the community, making your community a better place, a safer space. Crack is whack. Avoid drugs. Don't disrespect people and be a stand-up guy. And you liked it that. I said liked it that on purpose. You liked it that. You liked that.
Yes, I did. I really did love it. I really did. Like I said, like you said, I liked it. I really did because, like I said, it drove me. It really drove me and it drove my peers, you know, because we knew that we weren't out to harm anyone. We were only out to express ourselves because that's what conscious rap was about, expressing ourselves and our values, not only towards our peers. Of course, we knew that other people weren't like that because, like I said, you know, the drive and hunger and the thirst for money, sometimes that led to violence in a lot of, like I said, my peers, my contemporaries. But the group I was around, we were more so just inspired to say, look, you know what? Let's be about the peace, because that's what it was about. That's when we had, like I said, that rap group like Brand Nubian or whatever, right? Tribe Called Quest, talking
Lords of the Underground.
Underground, yeah. Wasn't about money, but expressing themselves.
That's right. We're on our way to the break, but before that, I just got a few more things I need to say to you, man.
Yes, sir.
Where was your leather necklace and your leather cross-color hat at?
Huh? I had the African patches. I had what they call the Dookie rope. I had all like I said, I had the ropes. Some of them real, some of them false. I hate the Figaro, the 3-finger rings, had all that stuff, man, because that was a part of the culture. You, like I said, you don't have to be out violent or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I see that in like really ingrained in our culture today.
Absolutely.
You know,
how did it feel? How did it feel to be a part of something that was emerging, that was so positive and so powerful? I mean, did you feel like, okay, you know, my father's listening to Marvin Gaye all the time. That's cool, but I'm not necessarily exactly like Marvin Gaye. And then, what's that? What's that sound? Oh, that's hip hop. Oh, that's me. Yeah. Oh, I'm loving this. You know, that must have been a major vibration that you were a part of at that time.
Yes, it was, man. It felt like I said, it felt like you could it just felt like you could open yourself, and it felt like your future was really bright. That's what it felt, made you feel like. It made you feel like you can do anything.
Right.
Even though you might have been, look, you might have been working in the supermarket, but you felt like, look, you know what? If Q-Tip out here, he's expressing himself, and LL Cool J, then guess what? You know what? I'm gonna express myself in the way I desire to. You know, you felt like that was a way to take reins over your life. You felt real powerful. Yeah, because you felt like a knowledge was coming to you.
That's right. So in a sense, you were on the verge of a positive change in your life. You were on the verge of upward mobility through your own creativity, your harmony with the gentleman that you grew up with. And one last question: what were your thoughts on the negativity that existed in our communities, the drugs, the violence, crack? What was your opinion on those aspects of life?
I didn't agree with it at all, but I understood the culture because like I said, those were my peers. And so, you know, your peers, you're not their parents, but you understand why a lot of them got caught up in that world because of some type of breach in their life. Like I said, not having the father figure, not having the attention, and not having the means. You trying to come up because there's a culture in its consciousness, but also sometimes it's materialistic. And when it's materialistic, you wanna be able to, like your compadres, you want to be able to look the way they look and dress how they dress and speak how they speak. And that comes with a culture that deal with clothing and jewelry. And so if you don't have a job, if you're living there, like I said, unfortunate situation, sometimes you'll get yourself caught up. You don't want to. And sometimes it'll take you further than what you want to go. So even though I didn't agree, I understood fully why they were engaged in it.
Without a doubt. And I do too. I do too. What would you say to a young man or a young woman out there right now who believes that they have a future in music or a future in art, but they're just on the cusp right now between going the illegal route and going the legal route? Could you pass some advice to them today?
Yes, I would say that you are uniquely created in the capacity of your skills and abilities. If you're feeling that fire burn to work in music, or you got a skill to rap or a skill to learn music, an ear for music, I would say learn your theory, learn your composition, learn all those things, learn the ins and outs, but especially learn about production and learn about how, you know, you can really monetize off of it. Find the vein where your message is, because keep in mind, just like you were influenced for music, your message is going to influence a lot of people. So I would say make sure that whatever you get into in that music industry, make sure that you go all the way in it, but make sure you go all the way in it with a different message, a message that not going to be damaging. But get back to the consciousness that, look, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed my generation, and I'm going to change the route that it's going now. I've seen these days, like I said, a lot of deaths for the rappers, you know, all in a row. That's unnecessary, because all you're trying to do is express your God-given skills and put your portion into the world. So I would just say, just keep your eyes focused on the music, the message. Make sure it's positive, and make sure you're going all the way in this thing. If that's your desire, go all the way, because something that's half done, people can really feel that. Put your all into it. You know, hard work and labor, there's always going to be some profit. That's what I would say to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Darnell Phillips. This is a man with a purpose. And we have more from Darnell Phillips after this brief message. You guys sit tight. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. we're back. Darnell, how you feeling out there?
I'm feeling well, man. I really am. I really am.
You know, before we went to the break, man, I really felt that you were saying some very very powerful things. And I just want people to remember the value of music, the value of the cultures and subcultures that we have here in America, and the power that we possess to make our world a better place. Now, as you became an adult, you encountered a huge adversity.
Yes.
Let's let the cat out the bag.
Well, at 18 years old, while going to pursue my music life and career, at that same time, I crossed paths with law enforcement. You know, a terrible discovery for me because I grew up respecting law enforcement. You know, and so at 18 years old, while out with my friends trying to get a demo together so we can send the Public Enemy, I was accused in an area of wrongful conviction of raping a young white girl. And so that was wrongful because, like I said, I didn't do any of that. I was just in an area. I was in the wrong place, wrong time. I had a bunch of witnesses as to where I was. I was in a house and the crime happened like a quarter mile up the road. And so I was accused, I was convicted, and I was sentenced to 107 years, and I did 27 and a half years in prison. And I've been out 28 months.
You got sentenced to 107 years?
107 years. My release date was 2045.
So I'm blown away by this. Ladies and gentlemen, we go through things in our lives. Sometimes our community gets to know the story. Sometimes our community doesn't get to know the story.
Right.
But this man, Darnell Phillips, is free today. He's here sharing his story. And I want to be honest. I'm blown away. You're trying to pursue your life. You're trying to send a demo to your favorite rap group, and then you just get cuffed by the police. Is that how it happened?
Well, yes. Actually, my buddy and I from New York, we were meeting up. It was he and another gentleman from Norfolk State and a DJ in his area in the Greenmount section of Virginia Beach. We were getting together so that we can put the demo together. You know, everybody bring their portion to the table, right? You know, whether they rapped, whether they knew how to work the turntables. And so when we were going out one day, there was a gentleman that passed us. He wanted a light because at the time we smoked cigars. And so he passed us by. We didn't think anything of it. My friend gave him a light. But then when I went further around the corner, the police drove up on us and they asked us, did we see anybody? We like, well, a gentleman just walked by us. And he was like, well, what did the person had on, right? You know, we just told the person had like on white and gray. Well, they didn't bother me because the person they were looking for had on a white and green shirt and gray shorts. Me personally, I had on all brown and black. And so we asked what happened. He said, well, a young girl was just raped over here in the area. We were like, oh, man. He asked, would you be willing to speak to us, you know, when he comes back around or whatever, right? And we were like, sure, but we really didn't know anything.
Did you think that this circumstance was going to turn into you being the culprit?
I did not. My conscience was just as clear as can be. Like I said, I had just came out of the house. I was in the house watching a TV show with my friend's mother.
So when did you actually get taken to jail over this?
2 days later, afterwards said, I'm gonna backtrack it. On that particular Wednesday, the officer, because I lived 10 miles away and I wasn't driving at the time, the officer, he drove me home. And so when he drove me home, you know, of course I explained to my mother, you know, why it took me so long because the police had been questioning me. And so, you know, we were like, well, man, that's messed up. So 2 days later, we were about to meet my friend down the beach. He was coming from Howard University. And so that night when we were walking across the street, getting ready to get into the cars, it was my friend's car. actually one of my brother's friend's car. The police, they pulled up in behind us and they shined the lights on the car and asked, is Darnell Phillips in the car? And I'm like, yeah, what in the world they want? So I stuck my hands out the window and, they took me to the police car and they didn't tell me what it was. I didn't know because I'm like, I was so befuddled because I was not committing crimes. I'm trying to get my music career right. Mm-hmm. And so they drove me down to the police station, questioned me for I was like 5 hours. I told them, I didn't do anything. I was vehement about it. I said, you can ask all these witnesses, but they didn't want to hear it. And about after all that questioning, they had one rogue officer came in there, talked to me, act like he wanted to help me. But really, he really started to, I asked him, could he help me because I didn't belong there? He just looked at me and because I got real upset and I put my head down and what he started doing was he was emulating me, kind of like trying to imitate me because I really was upset, right? Mm-hmm. And he started just doing like things, making his lip flutter like he was crying. Right. And then he began to accuse me and again, he tried to force me to confess. And so, during that time, that right there kind of woke me up because I'm like, this guy's really actually trying to ruin my life because he was trying to tell me that he would bring the victim into the courtroom, but and have the victim crying. And who do you think they will believe? Me or the victim or me or the cop? And so personally,
hold on. Yeah. Let me make sure that I'm understanding clearly. You probably had trust in the police before this whole scenario occurred. It sounds like you didn't think that this was gonna, result in you going to jail because all you got to do is tell the truth. And lo and behold, you're being interrogated, and he starts telling you, who are they going to believe? Me or you? They did that. They said, who are these people going to believe? You or me? They did that?
Yes, it was. It was just one officer. He said, and the thing about it, he wasn't even in the case, but he was like, who do you think they're going to believe, me or you? Or he said that I can help you. He said, but pretty much don't make it hard on yourself because once I bring the victim in the courtroom with pigtails, he said, that's it for you. And so I was trying to get some understanding of the magistrate papers that I had received. And he was like, well, look, man, that's your life. I didn't understand the difference between, going to court or, being found guilty or innocent. I didn't understand any of those proceedings. He told me the papers that I got from the magistrate, the charges, that meant that I had no more life. And so he had told me I was never going home.
Did you get to have a conversation with your father, your mother, lawyer?
No, because when the Miranda rights that they presented to me, they told me to sign them so I could use the phone call, to which I never had the opportunity to call my family, to call my parents, to let them know what was going on. Mm-hmm. And so I never got that chance. So even though they presented that right to me, they didn't place the phone in my hand. I didn't get to use the phone till later on. But I found out later on, after I spoke to my mother on the phone, that the officers had came to the house and told her that she would never see her son again. Yeah.
How did you feel when you realized the overall gravity of the situation that you found yourself in?
It was very daunting, man. It shook me to my core because, like I said, going from a person that not getting into any trouble, now finding yourself in a whole plethora of troubles, charges, and at the time they were telling me I was facing 3 lives in 30 years. And so me hearing that at 18 years old, not having done anything, and just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, that right there, man, that caused me to really become faint-hearted about my future. It really did at the time.
Mm-hmm. How did you cope?
I coped because right during that time, I felt the need to go back to church, to be honest with you, right? That was one of the connections I had with one of the guys who rapped from New York. He was a Christian young man. And so he started ministering to me, even though I grew up in church, he started talking to me and ministering to me about, Darnell, you know what? I think I want to go back to church, right? He was a pastor's son. I said, you know what? I got a desire to go back to church too. So at the time, I would talk to him about faith and music. So I was teetering on really getting back, going into church and really trying to develop a relationship with God. And so at that time, I started really trying to read the scriptures to really find myself and what my purpose in life really was.
At some point, did you think, I have no idea why I'm going through this, but I'm going to take this time to really find my true calling in life?
I did. Matter of fact, I got out on bond after I went to court. I got out on bond for like 9 months. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I had a desire to get into ministry. And so because I really wanted to help people, I just didn't know what angle to help people, you know? And so at that time, I had a desire to really get into ministry. And so that time there was a time I had a lot of introspection as to what I wanted to do. So at that early age of 18, I decided that my life goal would be ministry. And I said to myself that regardless of how long this situation would take, because there came a time when I got convicted to 107 years, I said that I would serve God in the place where I was going. I made it my mind that, you know what, I would just take the time to do what I would be doing on the inside, what I desire to do on the outside, because I believe that since I didn't do anything, that ultimately, if God was real, he was going to see to it that I walked out of there.
How long did you have to actually remain in prison, an innocent man in prison?
I remained in prison for 27 and a half years.
How did you survive?
2018.
How did you survive in prison when you were not, you know, a criminal? You weren't, you know, a violent person per se. You know, you were an innocent guy. How did you survive in prison?
I would say to be honest with you, it had to be the sheer grace and favor of God, man, because when you go into a prison with anything like a sexual assault charge, you're pretty much a target of abuse and violence. Me, I never dealt with that. One, because when I went into the prison system, a lot of guys had already seen my case. It was highly publicized. So they kind of figured out, because it's like, you know, like people say you give vibes off. Well, when I went into the prison system, guys can easily pick up as to kind of what type of guy you're in. That environment, you're very close knit. And so the men automatically assumed that something had went wrong, you know, and so I was never really assessed as a predator, a sexual offender, whatever. I was pretty much assessed as a person that something went wrong that didn't belong in there. And so I survived by teaching the scriptures, preaching the scriptures. I was a young guy. I read a lot and had read a lot before I went in. So I would teach scriptures, business, talk to guys. I stayed out of the way of everything, because prison is like a cesspool. You still can get drugs. You still can get high and drunk. But I stayed away from that, you know. I stayed away from things that weren't germane to the future that I desired when I walked out of there.
Did you think that there would ever come a time when you would get out of jail?
I did. I believe that from the very beginning. I believe that when I went in there, I just had a feeling that one day God will open that door for me. And so I held strong to that belief. And so, you know, I'm gonna tell you something, you know, I said, you know what, if I believed that, I didn't know when, but I felt that I would. I felt that from the very beginning. And so I would tell guys every year, guy would be like, Darnell, when you going home? Well, some of them didn't know my sentence. They didn't know I had 107 years. I didn't behave myself like that. I always operated like I'm equipping myself to go home at any moment. And that's how I lived. And so they would say it, and for every year, for 27 years, they'd be like, Donnie, you going home this year? I'm like, yeah, bro. So I'll be running, I'll be studying, reading books like I was going home, because I honestly believed that at any time that door would open. I just didn't know it'd be 27 years later.
Sounds like you had a very spiritual experience. And
I really did, man.
your heart was already in the right place before any of this happened, and you were confident in where your heart was, and in the end, your heart prevailed. God prevailed. You know, your spirituality prevailed. Every righteousness prevailed. Everything prevailed, and brought you to where you are today. Now, I found a video that pertains to you, and I want people to understand that Darnell Phillips is he's not trying to persuade us that he's an innocent man. It's a fact that he's an innocent man, and he got some help from a project called the Innocence Project, and we're going to shed some light on that in just 1 second. So you guys give me 1 second.
Right.
A very powerful story here today.
The Innocence Project, they agreed to take my case, and it took several years, up to 2015, but we finally started getting rhythm when Jenny Gibbons began to do some type of investigation down at the courthouse in the process of looking for another client's information, and they said that stuff that had been destroyed, stuff that had been gone for years, we come to find out that it was at the courthouse. When I walked out of that prison, I said, you know what, you've overcome this adversity. You lived to see this thing through. You didn't have to. You could have committed suicide. You could have just gave up. You could have did something stupid because you knew you didn't belong in there. And so I saw it as like a graduation day for me. When I walked out and saw my family, that was beautiful because some of them I hadn't seen in the free world. The Innocence Project at UVA has been like a family to me. Not only did they help me along, the 8 or 9 years that I knew them, but even when I came out, they were a very, very great support. And so I'll ever be grateful for their presence in my life.
Wow. Talk to us about the Innocence Project and how you became a free man through them.
The Innocence Project came into my life after my father died in 2010, or 2009, excuse me. One of the gentlemen, young guy, he became a friend of mine named Dennis Barrett. He came up to the prison after my older sister had went up to the prison, talked to a lot of the professors there, one particular named Deirdre Enright. And so he told me that he became really engaged in my case, and he had called the guy who was my alibi witness. And he said, Darnell, your friend told me he was with you the whole time. There's no way you could have been there. And he said, I'm about to graduate, but Darnell, if you would allow me to, he said that I'm trying to get things done before I graduate. He said, I only had like 6 months. And so Dennis began to put things in motion for me. And even though things didn't, finish in 2009, nevertheless, the Innocence Project, they were pursuing and all the DNA evidence, they were pursuing, talking to witnesses and everybody else that they knew could shed light on the situation that would give me substance to prove my innocence. They had investigated, spent a lot of resources on my case with the student body at UVA Innocence Project, who volunteered their time and their efforts and their energies. They became like a family to me, even up to this day right now. Matter of fact, I talked to one earlier through text. They were very instrumental in me walking out of those gates and doors. Things were, covered up in my case because there was a lot of corruption going on. Anytime that any type of injustice is going on, there has to be a lie somewhere. And so what they did was they invested their time into finding the truth, and that truth trumped the lie, and it set me free to this day. And I always thank God for the Innocence Project of just looking at my case and examining it and not pushing it to the side.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm very, very much inspired at your story, how you were able to get your freedom after 27 years. And what I'm not hearing from you is how you got extremely angry, how you gave up on yourself, and how you became disgruntled and or toxic. I'm not hearing any of that. I'm hearing faith. I'm hearing fortitude, integrity, leaving with your head up, and continuing to be a family man once you became a free person.
Yes, sir.
What kind of work do you do today?
Today I have a mobile detailing business called Redemption Auto Detailing, which highlights my story. The phrase of it is, everything deserves a second shine. And I'm talking about vehicles, but I'm talking about also that, for those who have a redemption story like mine, that, everything deserves a second shine. That second half of life. See, me, I can't be bitter over the past, because that right there, that would kill any desire that I have for the future. I can't focus my energy on that. So what I'm doing now is seeking to focus on just building my life, like I said in the beginning, but with a more mature mind than I had as a young man, to build a legacy. But I also have a clothing line called Black Chick Apparel, which pretty much it highlights the strength of women, Black being without distinction or color, but it's a brand that empowers women, because the whole team that I had pretty much outside of several men were all women. My two attorneys were women. The people who supported me while I was incarcerated was a woman like my fiance, Nichelle Ruffin, and my two lawyers, Deirdre Enright and Jenny Givens. And so even, like I say, my mother, God rest her soul, who passed away on October 11th, my sister Marvella, all these were women who stood behind me. So this brand that my buddy, he actually had a dream about how to do the trademark and, just the image and logo, right? I said, well, you know what? I'm all behind that, because I'm all for the empowerment of women, because had it not been for women standing behind me and empowering me, there's a strong possibility outside of God using them, I would still be behind that bar, falsely accused.
I want to also champion what you're saying today and encourage people to stay strong. If you are innocent, all hope is not lost. Find out about the Innocence Project. Learn the story of Darnell Phillips. Remain faithful. Be spiritual. And there's hope for you. Yes, this is a phenomenal story. I've got a few questions for you. We've got about a minute. We've got about a minute and 10 seconds left in the show, and I need you to answer 3 questions in that time frame. The first, what is survival to you?
In order to survive, it's like swimming against the current. And so to me, survive, you have to have a motivating factor that's going to be above your difficulties and your trial and your tragedies, while still holding on to your values, So to me, surviving is overcoming without losing yourself, overcoming a difficult situation without losing yourself to see a better day.
What is success to you?
Success to me is being who you were originally be. Sometimes we're born great originals, but we end up dying as copies. And so I would say success to me is finding out what you were created for. We're all created for an answer to a problem. And so I would say that you'll find out what problem you're created to solve when you get into the presence of that thing, because your creativity will come to life. So I would say that just be who you originally are. Got so many people out here to emulate their passion, but make sure you stay in tune with your own abilities and your own God-given skills.
Any books coming from you?
Yes, a book called God Delights in the Prosperity of His Servants, a book called Discipline, the Doorway to the Supernatural, and my story, which is going to be my autobiography, will be 27 years journey with the Holy Spirit.
Look at you shining again, my brother. What is greatness to you?
Greatness to me is after you found out what your purpose is, living in that truth. Don't be afraid to live the truth of who you know you are. Like I said, you don't want to, life is really meant to be lived. And that sometimes seems like an oxymoron, but it's meant to be lived to the fullest. God gave you a breath so you can walk out. God gave you a breath so you can walk out that destiny, and you can walk out the plan that he has for you. And that's a mighty plan. Regardless of what you're in now, learn who you are, because that is going to serve you well once you come through it with that story and that knowledge that you can help those that you were created to help and assist.
Darnell Phillips, I want to let you know that I've listened to your story today. Ladies and gentlemen, get your crown emojis ready. We are letting you know that we've heard your story, and we are giving you your respect today while you're still alive to receive it. We're giving you your respect today, and we're giving you your crown today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crowns into the chat. We're giving you a crown today, and we are letting you know, letting the world know that you, Darnell Phillips, you are America's next motivator.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks for stopping by today, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you got to do, just like you did today, is stop by and pick it up.